Hello, and welcome to another edition of CBU Conversations. I'm Jack Shannon, president of Christian Brothers University, and I'm so happy that you're able to be here with us today. Our team in admissions and financial aid have been working very busy processing applications and working with prospective students as they prepare to make their hopeful journey to CBU next year. As part of that process, they are working to help students and their families understand the different components of the financial aid package and what they are eligible. To help us talk through some of these very important application components are two of my Lasallian colleagues, Elizabeth Romani, Director of Financial Aid, and Olivia Betterton, Associate Director of Admissions. Welcome, Elizabeth and Olivia. Elizabeth, let me start with you if I might first. Undergraduate and graduate students wanting to apply for federal, state, or institutional university funds must complete a free application for federal student aid, or otherwise known as FAFSA, each and every year. Would you mind explaining why it's so critically important for both current as well as prospective CBU students to promptly complete and submit their FAFSA forms if they haven't already done so?
Of course. A CBU uses one application for determining all available aid for every student, and that's the FAFSA. So unlike other schools that may require two applications, we just use that free application for federal student aid. This one application will cover everything from federal aid, state funding, institutional aid, such as your grants and free money, and not just your loans.
So in terms of the process, it can be daunting, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit further about how to best navigate that. I must confess, even as a university president and someone who has higher ed experience throughout my career, completing the FAFSA for my daughter and then subsequently for my nephews when they were going to college wasn't easy. But I know, Elizabeth, in a moment, you're going to share some tips for us. Let me turn to Olivia for a second, though, before we do that. Here at CBU, over 90% of our full-time undergraduate students receive some form of financial aid. Olivia, would you mind explaining to our listeners the various types of financial aid, including grants and scholarships that are available to prospective CBU students?
Absolutely. So CBU has merit-based scholarships ranging from $9,000 to $18,000 per year. All students are automatically considered for a merit-based scholarship upon their admission to CBU. So we evaluate these awards based on weighted GPA and ACT super scores. CBU also has a number of specialized scholarships for different populations. So residents of Mississippi and Arkansas receive $3,500 per year. And this award assists our very close neighbors who do not qualify for that Tennessee Hope Scholarship. We also award a $3,000 Catholic school scholarship for our students who are graduating from Catholic high schools. We are also, of course, excited to welcome the children of CBU alumni. So these students will receive a $1,000 scholarship if they have a parent or guardian who graduated from CBU with a bachelor's degree. We have also instituted this year a Lasallian scholarship for students from fellow Lasallian institutions across the nation. So our out-of-state Lasallian high school graduates will receive a $10,000 scholarship. And then for our graduates from our local Lasallian high school here, Christian Brothers High School, they will receive $5,000. And all of these scholarships are renewable all 4 years students are attending CBU.
That's great. And you know, the resources that are available are and very impressive, and we've added to them as you described. The differentiation between out-of-state and Christian Brothers High School in terms of the Lasallian Scholarship Program is that because CVHS is here in Tennessee, we can leverage a number of in-state resources that will actually provide a benefit that oftentimes is even higher than $10,000 for those students. So I want everyone to understand we're not slighting in any way our prospective students at CVHS. They're very important to us. But as we grow and hopefully expand our Lasallian network to the other 54 high schools that are across the United States, it's really important that we provide them with the incentive to come here to Memphis and to pursue their education at another Lasallian institution, being CBU. Let me go back, if I could, Elizabeth, to the FAFSA. As I said earlier, it can be daunting, but it's really not. If you have someone who has experience with it, you can easily navigate it. It's actually a little bit easier nowadays because you can download your tax information and it automatically populates the form, which wasn't always the case in prior years. But for many of our students, they're the first in their families to go to college. So could you walk through the steps that are involved with the FAFSA application process so that any students or family members who are watching us right now might know what is expected of them?
Well, the student and the parent, if the student's classified as a dependent, must first start by applying for an FSA ID. And once this is done, then they can proceed to FAFSA.gov and begin the actual FAFSA. Now on our website at cbu.edu financial aid, there's a link for a step-by-step walkthrough that I recorded with helpful hints and tips to complete the FAFSA. So it'll go through each step and each screenshot of the FAFSA. And once the FAFSA is complete and submitted, it will generally take about 2 to 3 days for any of the designated colleges to receive a copy from the Department of Education. The college will then use that information collected and be able to award the financial aid.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Due to COVID, Olivia, we've had to make a lot of adjustments this past year, dating all the way back to, in fact, March, when we were just hit with the first wave of the pandemic and we had to go completely online, not only in terms of our courses, but all the work that so many of us were doing here at CBU as well. So we've had to make some adjustments across the board, but also in particular with the admissions process here at CBU. You and your colleagues have been doing some really remarkable work in hosting virtual academic open houses. I've had the opportunity to participate in several of those. They've been very informative, and I know that students and families have welcomed that opportunity to learn more about not only the university, but specific programs that we have here at CBU. But there have been other changes as well that the team has been making. Would you mind briefly going over those changes for us, as well as describe any special incentive programs that your office is currently offering to prospective CBU students during this challenging time for all of us?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest changes to our admissions process this year is that CBU has gone test optional. So this means that we are not requiring ACT or SAT scores for admission. CBU will also be utilizing self-reported GPA to admit students. So we understand that high school counselors this year may be having difficulty mailing out or submitting transcripts. We want to make sure no students are missing out on any financial aid or scholarship opportunities because of that. Students must have a self-reported, unweighted, cumulative GPA of at least a 2.7 in order to be admissible. We encourage students to confirm their GPA with their high school counselor before completing the CBU application. And while we do not require test scores, students are still more than welcome to submit those. So in order to be admitted with test scores, students must have a 19 on the ACT with a 3.0 unweighted GPA or a 21 on the ACT with a 2.5 unweighted GPA. And as President Shannon alluded to, CBU is working very hard to engage with our students during the pandemic. We host virtual visits each day in addition to in-person socially distanced campus tours. And so we're also excited to be offering numerous virtual events so our students are able to still connect with our faculty and students from home. We encourage our prospective students to keep an eye out for virtual event invitations and updates on the CBU website. And then finally, CBU is offering a $1,000 per year visit scholarship for our students who engage with us, whether that is virtually or in person.
That's fantastic to hear. I know that you and your colleagues have just been doing remarkable work, Olivia, and I want to thank you for that. It hasn't been an easy time, but I will say that from my perspective, and even more importantly, from the perspective of our potential students and their families, they are very, very happy with the information and service that they're getting. So thank you to everyone in the admissions office for that. The financial aid team's also been doing remarkable work, and unfortunately, once again, it's more work than maybe we would have anticipated. Sadly, Elizabeth, the pandemic has also presented some very real financial and economic issues for a number of our students and their families. Elizabeth, for those students whose families might be dealing with the loss of a job, or in case of some families, the loss of both their mom and dad being out of work, or some other unanticipated financial hardships, what advice would you have for them as they try to make it through these challenging times that we're all facing?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that the financial aid office is here to help them. We work for the students. So if they reach out to us, they can come in at our offices, they can speak to one of the financial aid counselors, and they're going to be able to review all the information that we have on file, and they're going to best determine the next steps for that student, whether it be going back through the process of the Department of Education with FAFSA and reevaluating that, or it be something institutionally that maybe we can tap into on our side. But we are here to work with them and determine those best opportunities.
I really appreciate that. I know that there have been some cases where a student or a parent have come to me directly, Elizabeth, with some really just heart-rending tales of what's happened to their families over the course of the last 6 months. And I want to thank you and the others who are involved with our Emergency Needs Fund for providing the support they needed as they needed it right now. I also want to thank a number of our donors who have supported the Student Emergency Needs Fund. They've been very, very generous, and I will say because of their generosity, we've had the resources to be able to meet all of the requests that we've received for books or for tuition assistance or legitimate requirements for a young man or woman to be able to complete their studies this semester. I think we're just about out of time, unfortunately. So I want to once again thank Elizabeth Romani and Olivia Betterton for joining us here today. At the end of this presentation, there will be information where you can find out more about the admissions process here at CVU, as well as getting some additional information about the available financial aid programs that are here at Christian Brothers University. Once again, I want to thank you for tuning in for this edition of CVU Conversations. I appreciate not only the work being done by my colleagues, but everyone here in the Memphis community who are working together to try to get us through this rather set of challenging circumstances posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Please continue to mask up, maintain safe social distancing. We're all in this together, Memphis and CVU. And I'm confident as we continue to be one family, one community, we're going to whip this and have a great 2021. Until then, take care and stay well.